Hello Dashers, this is John, and I'm back with a second video to provide some important information about what I've learned and to assist you guys out there by making some more money. Now if you have not checked out my first tutorial, please watch it before you watch this one. This video will be adding to the foundation we built in that first tutorial, which I named DoorDashing Tutorial 101. Now I've been dashing for a little over 2 months now. Yet I was getting frustrated that I was not able to maximize my time and earn more money. So I started to take some notes with the individual details of each delivery. What I'm going to share with you is some initial findings. I really believe these will help you to increase how much money you're making each week. So let's jump right in. How can I make more money? Now I had all this data about each of my dashes, but I was not sure what to do with it. Then by chance I ran into another dasher at a Thai restaurant, Peter, and while we were waiting for our orders, we got to talking. One thing he said really jumped out at me. He said that he does not take any orders under $20. Now I was really surprised by that statement, but he showed me his app and that he has over 3,500 deliveries so far since he's been working for DoorDash. So Peter clearly has some experience. Now my first thought was that if I declined some orders, my acceptance rate would drop and it would affect me somehow. Now if you have dashed for any length of time, you know the warning screen I'm referring to. Don't let your acceptance rate drop under 90% or there will be serious consequences, or something to that effect. It implies that. So I was hesitant at first to accept his advice, but it got me thinking. So I decided to run the numbers. So let's take a look at one particular type of dash. Here's a typical dash containing 10 orders. You'll notice that all the dollar amounts are under $20. Now if you add up all the amounts and multiply by 14%, you come up with a tip amount of $15.38. Why 14%? Well, that has been my average on tips in this particular hotspot, and your percentages may differ. Now let's look at a dash with orders above $20 or thereabouts. Now the tip amount obviously jumps. Just at first glance, you are making about twice as much in tips. Specifically, you're making an extra $19.16. So if you look at the numbers here, let me lower my screen here for you. Over 5 days, that's going to be $95.80 that you make in additional money. You multiply that over 4 weeks, that's $383.20. Now that's a serious difference. I mean, that's real money that you're leaving on the table by accepting orders under $20. Now obviously if your orders are over $30 each, the tips are going to increase incrementally. But I simply wanted to show you the numbers using the $20 limit. By the way, before I met Pete, my acceptance rate was around 98%. I mean, he was pretty shocked. Now it has dropped to 83%. Actually, his was 64%, by the way. So until someone shows me that the acceptance percentage helps me make more money, I'm going to continue with this strategy. And let me make this point again. You have to be concerned with tips. When I run my own numbers, tips account for 40% of my paycheck. 40%. So you need to be maximizing your tips. I also wanted to bring up the topic again of distance. You have to pay attention to the total distance you'll be driving for an individual dash. In the beginning, as I mentioned, I did not really concern myself with distance, but I do now. My current strategy is not to accept any order over 9 miles in distance. Anything over that, I feel I'm burning too much time. And when I look at my typical area, the city I dash in, it is around 9 miles in any direction from my hotspot. So this is not an unreasonable restriction. In fact, I received a dash the other day for an order from McDonald's. Now the dollar amount was $1.91. I couldn't believe it. And it was 11 miles total. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, somebody at corporate headquarters has to really look closely at adjusting their business model. That is one of the main reasons I created this tutorial. I mean, people new to the platform will accept any and all orders. I mean, I did. Most are just happy to have a job. I was. So there are the new recruits who start dashing, and they are unaware of the mathematics involved. They simply try and get in as many orders as they can and multiply that number by what they are being paid. In my area, it's $6 per delivery. And they try and hit their goal for the day. It is an unfortunate fact that the company will always have this specific group for making the McDonald's deliveries. And I believe the warning screen that I mentioned earlier keeps many in that category out of fear. These new dashers will not figure all this out until they watch this video. And if it takes them, let's say, 4 months to watch this video or figure all this out on their own, they'll be leaving around $1,500 on the table. That's $1,500. So let's go back to distance. You remember our discussion about time in my first tutorial. Time is always working against us. The lower number of miles, the faster you can complete the dash, and the more orders you can squeeze into your day. Now my average dash at this time is coming in at 28.9 minutes. Now that is only since I started watching the distance for each dash. Before that, my average dash time was about 41 minutes. Yet with all this filtering, Murphy's Law is still in effect. I mean, I just had a dash yesterday where I showed up to the restaurant, and at the moment I arrived, I received a text from dispatch saying that the order is being placed right now and is not ready. Great. So I hang out in my car for 10 minutes and read my book. I don't like to waste time. My plan is to go in and check on the status in 10 minutes. So I walk in 10 minutes later, and the girl at the counter says she just placed the order at that very moment. What? I couldn't believe it. She says that she was busy or distracted or something. I can't remember. Anyways, by the time I get the order and deliver it to the customer, it has taken 48 minutes. 48 minutes. Now this was not a big order, so the tip was not going to cover my lost time. Yet the total amount of the miles was only 7.6 miles. So you see how random events can eat up your precious time. I also had an order that day where they wanted me to pick up a $16 delivery, but the kicker was that it was 16 miles total. 16 miles. So I allowed it to be reassigned and waited for the next one. It turned out that the very next order was over $20 and only 3 miles in total. So you can see that by selecting carefully your order, you save time and make more money. Also, keeping the distance low will also save on gas costs. Alright, pausing orders. I also wanted to mention that I've begun to use the pause feature on the app under certain circumstances. So here's the scenario. I begin at my favorite hotspot. Now after a while you'll get to know where you get your best orders and what the best hotspot is. So I get an order that fits my criteria and I take off. I complete the dash and I find, in many cases, that I'm in a different city. I swipe to finish my dashing order and I immediately get a local order in that city for under my $20 limit or over 9 miles. Now in the past I used to take these orders and burn time dashing around in this other city, but I don't anymore. I simply hit the pause button immediately after my delivery and resume the dash when I'm back to my hotspot. Why pause? Because if you get an order while you're on the way back and it does not fit your criteria, you'll have to decline it, and your acceptance rate goes down. Now I know that I've inferred at this point that I don't care about my acceptance percentages, but I still do a little bit. I used to think that if I ignored the order and it simply gets reassigned, that it would not affect my percentage, but it actually does. It's the same as a decline order, so just decline it. Now I also wanted to mention that I currently have a technique I'm using right now. There's a popular mom and pop diner in my area which also has deliveries that are most of the time over $20. It is very popular with the locals and has great reviews. What is great is that it is actually used by those locals, so the total miles are low on each order. Sometimes they are right down the street. So I simply pause the dash and go back to the diner and wait to be assigned another order. Now I did this 5 times the other day. Now that comes up to about $30 in earnings and say conservatively about $14 in tips. and it took me a total of 2 hours. So that comes out to around $22 an hour. Not a bad hourly rate. Now to some other housekeeping items. I wanted to talk a little bit about drinks here. All right. Always remember to double check if there are drinks included in the order. And this also goes for chips. Sometimes they're within the list and appear as a side dish. So let's say that there are 5 items listed at the top of the order, but there are 2 drink orders buried within the side dishes. These 2 drinks actually make the total number of items 7. Now I got caught on this the other day. I remember going to a particular home and I forgot the drinks. It was a California Pizza Kitchen order, and the to-go orders were all lined up on the counter. I actually thought that was pretty efficient on the restaurant's part. But anyways, the gal there was very busy and pointed over to the counter. So I checked my app screen and it said 5 items. I checked the name. I checked the bag. There were 5 items in the bag. Great. So I grabbed it and walked out the door. Now as I look back on it though, there were 2 drinks on the counter next to another bag, but also a number of other bags all in a row waiting to be picked up. So I just took off, 5 and 5. The lady pointed to the bag, and I grabbed it, bolted out the door. When I got to the customer's home, it was a mom, and I handed her the bag. And as I walked away, she asked if I remembered the drinks. I told her there were no drinks listed in the order. I grabbed my app to show her, and what do you know? They were listed as a side dish, and I felt terrible. What made it worse is her little 10-year-old girl comes up and asks, "They forgot my chocolate milk?" She was so precious, and it made me feel even worse. I offered to go back and get them, but it was quite a distance, and we've already discussed trying to minimize the distances, and I've adjusted that issue. And the mom and I both knew that they would be done eating long before I got back. I also had a similar situation at the Habit Burger restaurant. I walked up to the counter to get my order, and she handed me the bag. I didn't check it to make sure that it had the sandwich. I assumed that the sandwich was under the onion rings. It was only a 2-item order. I didn't think they could get that one messed up. Well, I got to the man's house and handed him the bag, and I was walking away, and he asked me where the sandwich was. It was a chicken sandwich, I remember. Well, it was not under the onion rings, so I was really embarrassed. This actually happened on the same day as the drink order fail. It was not a good day. I told him I would go back and get it. Thank God the place was only 5 minutes away, so I just turned around and went back to the restaurant. As I was driving back, I called them to make sure the sandwich was still there. And when I got there, the lady was really embarrassed and very apologetic. So I went back and gave it to the customer. He was pretty cool about it and actually gave me a tip for my trouble. So moving on to customer instructions. Now, I have not been on the website as a customer, so I don't know the procedure of how they order the food. But you need to be aware that sometimes food instructions get placed in the area where there should be specific instructions as to the location. I'm not sure why this happens. Now, I sometimes pay attention, but many times I don't, especially if I'm on my way already to the customer. If the customer inputs information in the wrong area, that is not really my concern, because this is what can happen. I was just doing a delivery from a burrito shop last night. I grabbed the order and swiped the screen. I hopped into my car, but before I took off, I noticed in the special instruction area that they wanted to make sure I remembered the yellow sauce for the burritos. All right, I guess I'll go back in, because there wasn't any yellow sauce in the bag. But it turns out that they only have green, orange, and red sauces. So how this customer came up with yellow sauce is a mystery to me. The orange sauces were already in the bag. But the end result is a burned time. Not much, but every minute counts in what we do. And I also wanted to finally mention what I've been doing with some of the Chrome apps here. If you remember from my last tutorial, we discussed cutting down on distance by using a closer restaurant. What I do is have my Chrome app open and several tabs already set up with Starbucks near me or Panda Express near me in the search field. I then click on that browser page, hit refresh, and find out the closest restaurant near me, which many times is closer than the one they assign, especially the Starbucks orders. Okay, that's all I have for now. Please respond below with any comments you may have, and good luck dashing.